So, thank you for your patience via live stream and in the room. I right away start our today's panel's discussion since the interpreters, whom I, as always, thank very much for their support with interpretation in English, German and French, only have time until 7 p.m. sharp. That's why we right away will start the discussion in a second. Commissioner, this week's highlight will be the State of the Union speech by our Commission's President, Ursula von der Leyen. I don't know whether you know more than we as regular parliamentarians and representatives of the citizens. My overall question, my elementary question would be whether the Commission's President will address that many things in terms of regulation went wrong last mandate and they are about to go better this mandate. This would be what I want to address, and I look forward to elaborate on that in today's panel discussion. The panelists will be introduced by Göran Grén. He is not only our moderator today, he is also representing as a director the Confederation of Swedish Industry, responsible for the Swedish government's better regulation agenda 2007 to 2010. I look forward to that. I also can announce that in a second from now, hopefully, Markus Beyrer, a visitors group from Krems, your hometown, happens to visit us today. We didn't know that in advance, but everything happens for a reason. So your hometown Krems in Austria will be represented by a visitors group of elderly, of very young elderly. You will see that then. And I think they want to include both of us in their group afterwards, but we will discuss that later on. I hand over the floor by that to Göran Grén. I thank you again for heading our today's panel, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion in order to make a difference when it comes to pathways to prosperity. That's how I want to put it, and this is what we urgently need for Europe. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy in these times that it's not the pathway to hell, rather than that we're talking about the pathway to prosperity. I'll be very short to say that I've been working on better regulation agenda for more than 2 decades. I've seen all the ideas, I've seen all the initiatives, and I think that I'm very grateful also from the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise to be able to moderate this, as I think that Europe now, in the times where we are living, have a true momentum and a window of opportunity to do something about that is so burdensome for the European industry, for the European companies. So, with this said, we have a panel consisting of, I think, well, the most prominent people to talk about better regulation in Europe. We have on our left side the Director General from Business Europe, Markus Beyrer. Of course, we have then, let's see where, then Lukas Mandl that presented us. Then Commissioner, very welcome, Dombrovskis. We have met before, and it was just 5 minutes before the meeting, so that's why I'm saying this. So very welcome, and of course we have Marion Walsmann from the European Parliament. So having said that, I think it's better to start the discussion, and I think I will leave the word first to Commissioner Dombrovskis. Please, sir.
Yes, honourable members of European Parliament, distinguished guests, colleagues. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to join today's exchange. I'm sure that you all by now are familiar with general objectives of our simplification agenda. It represents a central pillar of our broader strategy to boost Europe's capacity to compete effectively in today's changing and challenging world. In short, simplification means making EU rules and regulations simpler, more proportionate and easier to navigate. We must allow our businesses to redirect their time, energy and resources from paperwork and towards innovation, investment and growth. So far, the European Commission has already presented 6 simplification proposals, including in agriculture, defence, due diligence and sustainability reporting. A conservative estimate puts annual savings for businesses stemming from these 6 simplification proposals at well over 8 billion euros. But this is just the beginning. Our overall objective is to simplify administrative procedures to reduce costs by at least 25% for all companies and at least 35% for SMEs. And this means cutting around 37.5 billion euros in annual administrative costs by the end of Commission's mandate in 2029. Obviously, what is important when we are trying to deliver such an ambitious simplification agenda is to promote ownership and buy-in, because otherwise certainly we will not be able to get it through. So we must build a momentum for a coalition at all levels that recognizes the importance of easing regulatory burdens and acts based on that imperative. And our simplification strategy has been designed with this in mind. It provides the tools and mechanisms needed to ensure that we deliver real, tangible results. The collective responsibility to deliver simplification begins with the European Commission. In order to achieve this ambitious objective, the Commission has adopted a strategy on implementation and simplification for the next 5 years, entitled A Simpler and Faster Europe. It is constructed around 4 building blocks: ensuring EU policies deliver results, making Europe simpler and faster, improving the way we make new rules, and strengthening our work with co-legislators and stakeholders. Taken together, these 4 building blocks signal a change in the regulatory culture of the Commission, shifting focus to ensure that EU rules are as simple and cost-effective as possible and that they deliver on ground. Each Commissioner is responsible for stressing the EU acquis under their respective portfolios. So while I have been tasked with driving and coordinating the Commission's work on simplification, it is a whole-of-college effort. Our strategy provides a framework to review the whole acquis by the end of current mandate, and this stress testing should result in simplification measures and an annual programme of evaluations to identify further opportunities for simplifications. The changes brought about by simplification must be impactful, not merely cosmetic. This is why we have been listening to those navigating our rules and regulations, including members of all Business Europe, in designing our proposals. The proposals we've already made respond to the concerns that we heard directly from practitioners. This includes, for example, reducing controls on farmers, moving towards one control per year principle, ensuring that SMEs are not faced with the same reporting obligations as large companies, streamlining due diligence obligations for companies to reduce compliance costs while upholding human rights and environment protection in a more effective manner. In fact, a dialogue with practitioners is embedded within European Commission's simplification strategy. Each Commissioner needs to hold 2 implementation dialogues with stakeholders per year. It also foresees that Commission services liaise regularly with practitioners on the ground through reality checks. These 2 new consultation approaches will help us to identify what works and what needs to be improved in application of EU rules, foster good practices, and prepare meaningful proposals. And today's meeting represents another opportunity for such engagement. Finally, we need support and cooperation of European co-legislators, the European Parliament and Council, to swiftly process the legislative agenda that will deliver simplification. And we need Member States to translate this legislation into real, meaningful, impactful changes for European businesses on the ground. For decades now, the European economy has been failing to make the full use of its assets to maximize prosperity and growth. This is most evident in our failure to keep pace with international competitors such as US and China when it comes to productivity growth and innovation. Our foundational economic assets, including the single market, the rule of law, strong institutions and highly educated workforce, have enabled the EU to navigate a series of economic shocks and crises in recent years. However, with persistent global trade tensions, shifting alliances, revolutionary technological changes, a war continuing to rage on our continent, we are witnessing a transition to a new world where Europe needs to quickly find its place. So today's turbulent world provides the strongest possible incentive for action. This is reflected in the broad consensus that we have reached a moment of reckoning, that we must restore Europe's dynamism and spur economic growth. I hope that this is also recognized in the European Parliament and across Member States, and we can now proceed to take action on that basis. To conclude, our citizens deserve a Europe that listens, reacts and delivers. The European Commission is determined to drive real change with an ambitious simplification agenda, which ensures that our rules and regulations finally work for our citizens, not against them. But the Commission cannot deliver simplification alone. It demands goodwill and commitment from all. So this is why I'm grateful that I can count on your support as members of European Parliament and business representatives in this room to move this agenda forward. And to respond to the first question already asked, okay, I'm obviously not in a position to do any preview of the State of the Union speech, but as I outlined,
so you do know more than we do?
As I outlined, the simplification agenda is there for the entire Commission's mandate, so I could imagine this being reflected in speech one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I would also like now to introduce Anna-Maja Henriksson, Member of the European Parliament. And I think you brought your whole fan club as well into the room. It was very fantastic to see so many people in this room when we're talking about such an important topic. And also I would like to mention that I hope on Thursday, I think it's the voting on the own initiative report. So we wish you all the best of luck with this. As the Commissioner said, it takes two to tango. You cannot do this alone, this work. So we need to be in line with the business, with the European Parliament, with the Commission, and also, of course, with the Council. This is a teamwork, and I think that the Commissioner mentioned mandate, but I don't think the mandate for better regulation for the citizens and the European enterprises can never stop by a mandate. It's an ongoing mandate, I think. And having said that, we are now having a panel discussion. With respect for all the speakers, I think that it's very good that you know that every minute you go over your own time, you take it away from someone else. And it's not from me, it's from one of the esteemed colleagues you're sitting right next to you. And the first one I would like to leave the floor to is Director General of Business Europe, Markus Beyrer. Please, Markus.
Thank you, Göran. First, of course, for chairing us, for leading the better regulation work of Business Europe, very important. Let me say thank you, Lukas, for hosting us, Valdis for being with us, and of course MEPs Walsmann and Henriksson for being with us, and also for your report, in which there's very good ideas. And let me extend a very special thank you and welcome to the enormous delegation from Krems. So that's very nice that you're all here. Lukas just told me, so welcome to Strasbourg. I hope you will enjoy your time here. Göran, how many minutes do you give me so that I don't run too much over time? How many minutes do you give me, Göran?
Oh, you already used half of your time.
Okay,
no, sorry.
So
no,
I'll speed up.
Actually, I'm thinking about approximately like 5 to 6 minutes.
Very good.
And then, of course, to open up for questions from the public. Excellent. And from the network. Thank you.
So I'll be brief. Very briefly. Why are we here? Why do we talk about better regulation and simplification? I mean, it's very clear that Europe has been falling behind these last years. We got a number of wake-up calls, and just recently this summer, and you have all discussed the deal we did with the United States of America, many have criticized it. And the truth is we simply need to become strong ourselves to be able to do better deals in the future. So number one, we'll need to significantly do our homework. There's a couple of things we will need to do. But one important point of this homework is we need to deal with the regulatory overburden we have partly created ourselves and simplify the regulation we have partly at the table. So now we have a European Commission, and I must say, Valdis, we're very grateful that the direction of travel is right now. I think there's a couple of omnibuses which go to the right direction. Of course, this can only be first steps, and we all know this. I mean, we need to go on the next year and the year thereafter, and we must very much abstain from going back to business as usual because not wanting to dramatize, but I think then we are done. And we are now in the most difficult part of the exercise where right things start to happen, but as long as the companies on the ground don't feel them to happen. I mean, I think, Lukas, you called it last week, you called it something like the Death Valley of regulatory simplification, and that's maybe true, because as long as the companies don't feel it, it doesn't count. So that's the moment, maybe the most important moment and the most difficult moment we are in now. So we need to go on with what we're doing, and again, Valdis, we're grateful for the simplification points you have put at the table. Of course, then we will also need to think about what is our long-term concept, because omnibus is a good instrument, but we will need to think about how do we come to a system where we over a couple of years really simplify everything which needs to be simplified on the one hand, and on the other hand, how do we make sure that with what we produce in the future, it will not be necessary to again make omnibuses in a couple of years. So, and in order to do so, and then I'll stop for the first one so that you can ask questions, Göran, and for this we need all three institutions. So we need the Commission to make the proposals, we need the Council to back them, which, I mean, as far as Omnibus 1 is concerned, mostly happened. I mean, there's details I would have done differently, but overall they did. And now, of course, we need the European Parliament to back these proposals, to maybe even improve them, if I look at your report, and to bring it home rapidly. Because, I mean, let's say the deadline of the stop the clock we are having, I mean, that's really the very latest we can deal with. And again, I think this is really the moment where we decide about our own future here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markus. And then I leave the floor now to Marion Walsmann from the European Parliament. So please, I know that you will be speaking in German.
Ja, meine sehr verehrten.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, welcome, and also welcome to the delegation from Austria. As spokesperson of the Parliament and a member of the SME board, I have a real focus on medium-sized businesses, and I think I can say I'm very grateful for the position paper from Business Europe. Mr. Dombrovskis, the Commissioner, is really at the heart of all this work now and has to basically create a miracle. So less is more. We need to think about competitiveness, energy, workforce, and solve all these issues as soon as possible. So what's the problem? When we look at these businesses, the smallest businesses, where we have 5 to 10 or up to 249, so mid-cap category businesses, if reporting obligations aren't reduced, that will lead to increased costs just to fulfill these responsibilities, which aren't even needed, because if a business is working in Europe according to European rules and is selling and repairing and whatever, doing what they do, shouldn't necessarily have all of this additional burden. So I think we really need to look at what reporting requirements are still properly needed. According to estimations, smallest businesses are the most affected, and if you consider that we're talking about roughly 40,000 euros being paid for administrative personnel, this is a huge impact. Of course, for larger businesses, that's nothing, but small and medium-sized businesses cannot afford that. So they are waiting for the impact of the omnibus. It needs to work, because at the moment they're not fulfilling these reporting requirements, and they're really hoping that this will be significantly reduced or even abolished. So we need to see encouragement from you, Mr. Dombrovskis. You are the hope for these businesses. So we need to go beyond these packages, the omnibus, which sees a 70% change for small businesses, but we need to also consider the protection, the shield for small and medium businesses that we saw in the first and second omnibuses. We also need to make that continue. So that means that we don't end up seeing everything just passed over to the small businesses. Who is making sure that's going to happen? Who's making sure that this shield for small businesses is going to be properly implemented? We need to do everything we can so that the omnibuses are put into action, and to make sure that the regulations we have adopted to simplify things are properly implemented and properly brought to bear. I'm from Thuringen personally, and we don't really have medium-sized businesses. We just have large-scale industry. But in Thuringen, 1,850 reports would need to be made according to these sustainability rules. So, it's in their own interests, people say, to reduce their CO2 footprint and to become more competitive, but reporting requirements are anything but that, because they just require double the time in terms of work going in, and they don't do anything in terms of impact. So this is a serious problem, and I can only say, looking at where we have a lack of harmonization, we have regulations which contradict each other, and in those cases, the colleagues at the Commission and the Cabinet, we need to make sure that they look at whether the regulations adopted in the last parliamentary term make sense. So we need innovation, we need competitiveness, and we need to see what was being wasted on all this paperwork, and we need to move all of that potential into working on ideas, because if 8% of medium-sized businesses are protecting their intellectual property, and when we think about patents, looking at patent applications as well, we're not doing badly compared to other countries, but if only 1/3 of patents are actually turning into products, we have to ask ourselves if businesses aren't too busy doing other things. So that's my position. It's certainly very interesting to hear from Business Europe and their position paper, but as the EPP, we're putting pressure on the responsible individuals now, because we need to make sure that all of these decisions are properly implemented, to make sure that these businesses feel that this is now a real change, and that we don't have financial institutions coming around the corner and saying, oh, well, you don't have reporting requirements anymore, but I'm going to ask you for it anyway. So we need to be consistent in the way that we properly implement this, and to do this in a way that will have a real impact, so that we can have more competitiveness in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very clear-cut message. Please know what you are doing. So I leave now the word to Anna-Maja Henriksson. Yeah, varsågod.
Tack så mycket. Thank you very much and greetings from Finland. I'm a Swedish-speaking Finn, so therefore with the chair here we can speak the same language. For the first, thank you very much for the invitation to this discussion and to this panel, and thank you also, Mr. Lukas Mandl, for this invitation and cooperation. And dear Commissioner, I'm sorry that I couldn't hear your introducing words, but I heard the second part of it, and I agree on many things. But let me say some words, and let me begin with why do we need simplification. We are now living in a time with great uncertainty. We see it every day. Russia's brutal war and the aggression against Ukraine continues, and we have war in Europe. Ukraine's fight for freedom, it isn't just the Ukrainians' fight, it is also our fight. They also fight for us, for the European values. And what does this mean? It means that our countries also have to put more money into defense and security. And where do we take the money? And when we look at the European Union right now, we are good at many, many things. But we also have many things where we can improve, and we have to look at what we can do better. And then we come to the simplification. For us in Europe now to be able to stand firmly on our own feet through the storms of the world, we must strengthen our competitiveness. And for that, it's evident that we need a regulatory framework that works in practice. It must be clear, it must be predictable, and not place unnecessary burdens on businesses. I think I was a Minister of Justice in Finland for a long time, and when I have followed the situation in Europe, I also see that we want so many good things, but it can lead to over-regulation. And that is one of our problems. And the other problem is that when we once have our common rules, every country doesn't implement it in the right way. And therefore we get an imbalance also in the internal market that is so important for us. So this is also things that we have read about and learned about in the Draghi report and in the Letta report. And by simplifying, digitalizing and removing unnecessary barriers in the single market, we also create space for growth, for innovation and jobs, while standing firm on our shared values and goals, such as the climate goals and a good and high-level consumer protection, and respecting the better regulation principles. But therefore, I also welcome now the Commission's ambition to cut the costs associated with administrative burdens with 25% for companies and 35% for SMEs, which is also recognized in this report, where I have had now the pleasure to be a rapporteur on implementation and streamlining of EU internal market rules to strengthen the single market, that we will vote on Thursday. We need more digitalization. We need to use it. We need to use also AI in reporting. We need to do it simpler. If you have reported once on one thing, you shouldn't have to report it once again. So we have, as the previous speaker also said, we have to cut the red tape. And I will say that in IMCO committee, the Committee for Internal Market and Consumer Protection, the report was now supported by the EPP, S&D and Renew, the von der Leyen majority, but also by the Greens and the ECR. So I hope that we can see a big majority for this report, which includes about 40 different points, and you can say the Parliament's will to the Commission and to the Member States that please do this and please give us a timetable, please do it as fast as we can, because we need to listen to the businesses and we need to get in Swedish we say "for hjulen att snurra." We need to get wheels to what is it? Yes, go around. That's the right thing. So I will conclude with that I also know that we need to be more alert to what the businesses say, and especially the small and mid-cap businesses. And we have a possibility to innovate in Europe. We have great universities, we have great countries. We have to do more network together, and we have to show the world, we have to show US also and China that we can be strong and we can stay on our own feet. And this is what also this report is about. So, dear Commissioner, I wish you strength and we will support you in all your good proposals. Thank you.
Tack så mycket. Thank you very much. And now I think, there seems to be a unified view that the problems are identified. I think no one has argued against. But what are the solutions? Is it to roll out even more omnibuses? So I'll go to the head of the bus garage himself, Commissioner Dombrovskis, please.
Well, yes, indeed. We need to roll out more omnibuses, and that's what we are planning to do. Still this year we are planning to do digital omnibus on environmental legislation, proposals, let's see if we'll be calling it omnibus on military mobility, targeted revision of REACH as regards chemicals. So there are already quite a few things in our pipeline. And we are currently also preparing a Commission's work program for the next year, where we will continue to roll out omnibuses. Because if you look at our administrative burden reduction target of 37.5 billion euros, as I was mentioning, currently we are below 8.5 billion euros. So we need to roll out omnibuses at least at the same pace over the coming years, also keeping in mind that probably in the last year of mandate there will be limited legislative activity to actually reach this burden reduction target. And of course, to use this analogy which you used on garage, Commission will roll them out of the garage, but it's also important that co-legislators roll them to the final destination, as I said, because at the end of the day what matters for businesses is what happens on the ground, how the rules and regulations are changed and then implemented in the member states.
Thank you, Commissioner. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that everyone is in agreement that should not all politicians in all camps be responsible for the proposals and the decisions they make. And I was quite stunned, really, by none of you really expressly mentioned the interinstitutional agreement, which I think is, as everyone knows from 2016, the instrument where when you do amendments, larger amendments to the proposal, along the way, even if it's a bus or it's a bicycle, it doesn't matter, you need to be responsible, or more or less, to explain why you do these amendments during the process. And I think everyone in this room, I know everyone reads the interinstitutional agreement like I do, it has not really worked. I think many can agree with me on that. And I was thinking perhaps this is something that one of you would like to comment on, the interinstitutional agreement. Yes, Madam Henriksson. Yep.
Yes, thank you very much. I I also thought that I would mention it, but I forgot it. But it was very good that you noticed it, because it was so that already in 2016, the Commission, the Council and the Parliament concluded this interinstitutional agreement on better lawmaking, and calling for example, impact assessments on substantial amendments proposed by Parliament and the Council. And I now highlight it also now in this report. So it is among these suggestions that we now have in this report. And we have talked a lot about it during the negotiations. And we concluded then into the right text that we now have in the report. But I think it's really important because, of course, we have to know what will be the consequences of new amendments which come after that the Commission has given its proposal. So if you come with new amendments that can have a bigger impact on the whole legislation, it's natural, it should be natural that you also then do the impact assessment, because we have to know what we are ending up with, what kind of legislation, what will it lead to. And this was something, I must say, that it was something that I was very surprised of when I came to this House a year ago. So for me it wasn't a difficult issue, but I noticed that for many it was. And now I also understand those who criticize it, but I think that as legislators and co-legislators we have to stick to the rules, and we also have to take responsibility about what our amendments will lead to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have three requests for the floor. And first, bitte sehr, Frau Walsmann.
Ja, ich würde gerne als 2019.
I joined the Parliament in 2019. I'd like to comment this issue of better regulation. It's a matter of principle. Legislation should only happen where it's truly necessary. During the last term, and the one before that, and this is thanks to Mr. Draghi, there was not always an impact assessment, and this was very common. Now, we're trying to remedy that. The Commissioner's mission letters also included streamlining their respective portfolios and looking into what we could do without. We need the white papers to come back. We need to look at what we need to regulate. So you have to look at what we need to regulate. Then if you're repealing regulation, you have to look into the effects, the knock-off effects that could have. And then we should have a bit more trust in businesses that they will actually be compliant and that they will want to comply, quite simply due to global pressure. When it comes to CO2 reductions, for example, a lot of them didn't need the incentive because it's a matter of competitiveness. I really regretted the fact that a lot of the great proposals we had for cutting red tape tended to come at the end of the term, and then we didn't really have an implementation phase for those. That I think is potential we could harness. And then one more thing. There's new legislation on top of all that. So aside from omnibuses and fitness checks, but at the beginning of all this, we should ask the question, is this necessary or is it gold plating? And then we should also consider repealing legislation.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on this question on interinstitutional agreement, because indeed that's something which also European Commission has brought forward at the beginning of the mandate. As it was already said, we do have this interinstitutional agreement to impact assess substantial amendments. Parliament has done it very few times and not any time recently. Council has not done it at all. So we really need to institutionalize or operationalize rather what has been agreed. And from Commission side, we also propose to put forward methodologies for simplified impact assessment of those substantial elements and in a sense to support this work of co-legislators. But that requires obviously the will of the co-legislators and to actually do it and foresee it in their own processes and procedures.
Thank you very much. And now Director General Beyrer.
Thank you, Göran. A couple of points listening to the good proposals. I mean, first, I like the idea that the EPP will be pushing because we will need this, so thank you for this. Second, I mean, still to the starting point. I mean, why did we, and thank you for referring to it, why did we make our 68 proposals how to simplify? Because companies told us that they were drowning in legislation and they were not able to do their job. So this is why we made these proposals. A couple of them have been taken up, thank you, Valdis, but there's way more on the list. So I think for the time being, I think we have 13 or 14 in the pipeline out of the 68. We are now working on the next batch, so we'll be coming up with more proposals. Because there's still a lot of work to be done, as Valdis very much underlined. Second, large and small companies. Obviously, there is more burden even comparably on small companies, and we need to be very careful on this. But a contrario, this doesn't mean that the large companies can deal with it. It can mean that they can deal with it more. I mean, they have the staff to deal with it, but what does it mean? If there is over-regulation, it means that they lose global competitiveness. They will no longer be able to sell their products, and they will no longer be able to do the lighthouse function for the SMEs they need to do. So totally clear that we need to be specifically careful on small and medium-sized companies. But of course, we need to make sure that legislation, and I think this is how I understand think small first. I mean, because if it works for the small ones, it will then also work for the larger ones. The second point. The third point I wanted to make is on the instruments, because you all talked a bit about the instruments. So first, impact assessment. I mean, most of the legal acts we have at the table, there was impact assessments, but at the end, I think the judgment on what the impact assessments meant were maybe not always balanced, or let me say it differently. I think what we'll need in the future, and the tendency is going in this direction now, is legislation based on facts and not on ideology. And I think this is the mistake we might have done in the past a bit. Second, we have the regulatory scrutiny board, which very often said, I mean, stop, this doesn't work, based on the impact assessment, like it did twice on the so-called on the due diligence on the CSDDD, and this is something we must not ignore. And the third point is the competitiveness checks. It's very good that they have been introduced, but for the time being, they don't have the teeth they need. They are sometimes, I mean, it's a tick-the-box exercise. We have scrutinized some of them, the one on the European Works Council Directive, the talent pool, the late payment regulation, and the combined transport directive, and I can say the impact was very moderate, so to say. So I think what we need is to use this instrument, make it mandatory, and make sure it needs to be validated by the regulatory scrutiny board. And then I come to the interinstitutional agreement. You are totally right, Göran. Then, of course, all these things need to apply to all institutions, because there was maybe fields where I was also not particularly happy with the Commission proposals in the last term. I'm more happy with some of the proposals now. But, of course, what counts is the end result. So this means we, of course, also need to scrutinize amendments we should have a very clear plan. What is a significant amendment that needs a certain impact assessment in order to make sure that the end result is fit for purpose, and this is what we sometimes lost out of sight.
Thank you very much, Markus. And now, of course, the floor is open for the audience for any questions, and also online. And I would like to, for everyone that puts a question to the panel, to introduce yourself first. Thank you.
Ja, mein Name ist Bernd Posselt. Ich war Jahrzehnte.
Yes, Bernd Postler. I was a member of this house for decades and also president of a German organization. So firstly, I'm very happy to see guests from Krems here because I quite like the wine from Lower Austria. And I'm also great to see that you're here because I think you've taken on this role. I remember when you were a very young MEP and there were so few people dealing with this issue, and it seems that you're very courageously putting serious issues on the table, Chechnya and so many other sensitive, serious issues, and you're clearly a very good politician. And for that reason, I think you're the right person for cutting red tape. And the greatest amount of cutting red tape has taken place by getting rid of bureaucracy. And thanks to those politicians who have focused on this as an issue, it's a very popular thing because I think everyone is in favour of less bureaucracy. But at the same time, everyone is in favour of checks and stopping abuse. So when we talk about citizens about this issue, they say that we want less reporting, less checks, less bureaucracy. But then when the first case of misuse or violations come up, they say, well, why were there no checks? So that's the very difficult tension that there is. And I think less bureaucracy is only possible when you say to people, less bureaucracy means more independence, less checks, more trust in citizens and businesses. But there are darker sides to this, and we need to say this as it is. We have to say that we can't have a perfect world without checks. In fact, we can't make a perfect world at all. So I think that's the most important point, because otherwise this whole idea of less bureaucracy will be impossible if it doesn't mean that we trust citizens more. So that's the problem. And I think to cut bureaucracy, you need to be quite brave about it. So I think you're doing a really good thing here. Thank you.
Und ich glaube, dass, sorry, yes, it was in English. Yes, and I think that time is running out also. And I would like to hear, some last comments and words from the panelists. And I would like you to all to keep to around 1 minute, perhaps. And then perhaps you would like to conclude the meeting? Yep. So, 1 minute, and I think we start from the recht. Das ist da links für mich, ja.
Ja, ich will das gerne tun. Ich muss gleich zur Abstimmung gehen.
Yes, I'm going to have to go to the vote in just a minute, so apologies. I'll cut to the chase. I want us to be successful. Businesses and citizens' eyes are on us and on whether we are able to provide more funds and help businesses overcome the challenges. We need to have more self-confidence. And I would agree with Mr. Kostel, there might be some collateral damage. And when people then get indignant, we have to consider that if we want less requirements, less red tape, we have to accept that things aren't necessarily always going to go as we would like them to. But overall, we're going in the right direction. We're going to support this legislative proposal. We're going to support Mr. Dombrovskis, and we will contribute with our own proposals. Business Europe made a great contribution, and the IMCO and my committees are very committed to these positions. Thank you very much.
Dombrovskis.
Yes, thank you, and I wanted to thank Bernd for good words on this whole simplification agenda. Well, I think what is important that we do not lose focus and that we continue to push this agenda forward, because there certainly will be tendencies to fall back in business as usual, and now we have delivered something and then we'll move on. So it needs really a kind of constant attention and constant push of those colleagues which are convinced it requires constant push of the business community, that this stays high on our agenda and actually we deliver on our burden reduction targets. And obviously it requires also lots of engagement and work across the board. Here we are, so to say, preaching to the converted. Everyone seems to be in agreement, but when we go to, so to say, more to the left in a political spectrum, when you discuss with trade unions, when you discuss with NGOs, you often hear different signals. So we really need to broaden this reach, that there is a broader acceptance and willingness to move forward this simplification agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we move directly over to Director General Beyrer. Yes, and please keep it short if possible. Thank you.
I'll be very short. First, I mean, very happy to rely on Valdis' courage, but I mean, we will need it because you will need to stand. But I can assure you we will not only stand behind you, but we'll also stand in front of you when necessary. So thank you, and we'll continue to make proposals. Second, we need to succeed. I think we have a year or two now, maybe, to stop strangulating our companies. Then we have a chance to get the feedback on the ground. If not, we will end up in being dominated by the rest of the world even more than we are today. So that's one of the crucial points. There's cost of energy, there's deregulation, there is diversifying our import and export markets. So this is the things we'll need to succeed in. And the third point, of course, it's about more responsibility. Of course, I mean, it means that not everything can be covered. And there is a certain political challenge there. But very often it's mystifications. Let me end with one example, the CSRD. This reporting, this sustainability reporting. I always hear from politicians, we need it because the banks want it. We have been sitting down with the whole financial sector, the banks, the insurances, the emitters, and we have agreed that from these 1,200 data points, 70% are unnecessary. So the financial sector says we don't need 70%. 17% we have agreed that we need them, and they can be done in a sensible way. And there's only 13% where we don't agree, where we say it's maybe too burdensome, and they say we need it. So that's minor. So 70% are not necessary. So it's really about being honest, sitting down, doing the job, and I think we can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Henriksson, varsågod.
Yes, thank you. Very brief. I think now is the moment, and we can do it. But we have to do it together, and we also have to realize that better regulation, it doesn't mean that we have no regulation at all. Better regulation means that businesses understand the regulation, the small business knows what they have to report, they get the help with the reporting. We fix one-stop shop for the small businesses so that they can find it at the internet. Here is the address. I follow these rules, then I know that I have done what the legislators expect for me. In this way, we can get also innovations, and we can get investments to Europe, and we can get the jobs to Europe, because we don't want to see the jobs going to the US or to other parts of the world. We want people to come to Europe to work. And we have to realize that then we have to cut unnecessary burden. But we have to stick to our climate goals. We have to have a good level of consumer protection. And we also are able to cut red tape. I think that the moment is now. and I think that we can do it. But we also need all the member states with us, and there we all have to do more. So it's not impossible. Everything is possible if you really want to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the last word goes to our host who organized this. And from my side, I would just like to say thank you. So the last word, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I thank you very much for the excellent moderation. I thank my staff who has actually organized it, Felicitas Birkner and Pia Travasch, when she's in the room. I thank the interpreters one more time, and in particular the visitors group from Krems, the hidden capital of my home region, Lower Austria, by the way. Don't quote me, it's only online in YouTube afterwards. But Josef Edlinger is heading the group from Krems, and it's just a coincidence that Markus Beyrer happens to also come from Krems, but as I said before, everything happens for a reason. Commissioner, I only want to make one point. Since we heard a lot of agreement on this panel, and this is a good sign, because we spread the message, and the message is important. And we all know there is also counter-strikes against what we are doing here. But since the pandemic, we had annually around 0.5% growth. The USA had 3.5, China had 6. And this is not only China and Trump and Putin or whatever, this is also our homework that we have not done in the last mandate. I mean, some parliamentarians have, I have to say. I would rather include myself into that. But we have to do it now. And this is why I advocate for not only talking about simplification, but for talking about deregulation. And this is what I am curious on regarding the speech of Ursula von der Leyen Wednesday. I'm not too much into terminology. I don't care whether it's called this way or that way, but we all know there has started an ideological debate about this terminology, and this is why I think the message must be clear. But the agreement on the panel and your courage, Commissioner, is amazing, is excellent. I can imagine it's not always easy in the college as well. You are doing it. I thank you for that. I thank you also for your bravery to come to the Parliament in a full room of people who more or less share the same vision to defend this path, and this path is much better than the path in the last mandate. This is also what I want to underline. Thanks to everybody, thanks to Business Europe and to my colleagues for joining today's debate. Have a very good and not too stressful Strasbourg week.